guys, welcome to Beyond Bricks. I am your host, Kevin Stewart, and today, guys, I am joined by, I'm telling you, one of my absolute best friends, a man that I look up to. I can't even tell you how much I look up to this man. One of my great friends, Dan Russell. Dan Russell, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Kevin, thank you for having me, man. I am so excited about the show and to be on. Man, it's an honor. Thanks for having me.
So we've been talking a lot about, positivity and being the best person you are and living into the person that God has meant you to be. And I can tell you, to start off, you are someone that I believe truly embodies that spirit. You are someone that I see that embodies the pure joy of life and the joy of being a good person, the joy of impacting other people. And there's a depth to you that's special. And I'm excited to talk that through today and talk through the journey of what got you to the place where you are. So let's start there. Let's start with the journey. Give us the journey of kind of where you started, where you've gone, and what led you to where you are today.
Wow. And first off, thank you, Kevin. I wake up every day with that same purpose. God gave me another 24 hours and I want to help as many people as I can in that 24. And that it's as simple as that, that looks different every day. But when you talk about the journey, I think, you look back over your life and you say, man, it wasn't always easy. And I think we all have that story, right? For each one of us, we've gone through our own struggles to get where we are. And then you look back and recognize a lot of those struggles turned you into who you are. And, I was raised by two pretty amazing people that had grown up in the city of Detroit in a tough time to grow up in the city of Detroit. And, my parents raised me with some very high expectations, a very high bar. They had moved out of Detroit to Belleville, and they really always pushed me for more. And I never quite understood as a kid why they pushed so hard. As I then became a parent, now a parent of 6, you recognize why they push so hard, because they're scared for what the world is out there. And the world can be a tough place. And I think growing up and my mom and dad seeing a lot of what happened in the 50s and 60s in Detroit. And I think they also saw opportunity. And so I think they never wanted me to settle. And that was something that my parents had a bar that always was so high. And I felt like I could never quite achieve it. But I recognized later that they really were pushing me to be the best version of me and the best version of excellence. And even my sister, she was a tough act to follow. Still to this day, double master's, PhD, clinical psychologist.
She's a good one. I've met her. She is a tough one.
She's a tough act to follow. But growing up, it was always, you're trying to find your voice. And yeah. I joke that, years ago, I remember a teacher telling me, Dan, sit down, shut up. Nobody's going to pay you to talk all the time. Oh, shocker. I actually.
Don't you love when the world works out that way? And somebody tells you that it ain't going to happen and then, ta-da.
Exactly. I'm like, well, God had a different plan. Yeah. And, you think about that and you think about those messages that people did pour in. And, there were some people along the way that I kind of felt a little bit like Michael Jordan when he gave his Hall of Fame acceptance speech, and he thanked a lot of people who told him everything he couldn't do. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the 6'6" superstar. So when it came to things like sports, I had to work harder than everybody else.
And it's funny to say that you weren't the fastest, because there are very few people in this world that I would have no interest in getting in a foot race with, because I'm fast. I'm a quick boy. I am light on my feet. And I'm not a chance on the planet. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We were not a chance on the planet. I'm trying to foot race. Still to this day, not a chance.
Well, and what's funny about that, Kevin, is I remember a story when I was in high school that it really motivated my career. There was a gentleman who was an amazing hurdler, and he was injured for a race. And I remember my high school coach telling the team that, hey, if we lose this one, it's because our hurdle team's banged up tonight. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, did you just say if we lose this meet, it's because I'm not capable of filling his shoes? And that was one of the first times that I got motivated by things that people told me I couldn't do. So most of my life, that's what I kept trying to do. I always connected with everybody. I never wanted to be grouped in with any one particular group. I hung out with kids that were athletes, but I hung out with kids that were, back in the day, they called them the nerds and the burnouts. And I had friends just across all sectors of life. And I just always wanted to get to know people. And I found recognizing different people and the way they operate, where they come from, it helps to shape who you are. And so over the years, I've been really blessed to have a lot of people who took the time to maybe give me one or two words of encouragement when, the world is maybe telling you all the things you can't be. And I kept grabbing onto those and I kept holding on to those things. So, bounced around schools a little bit through high school, had an amazing chance to go up to Michigan State University. And, you get up there and that's a big school. You're up there with over 40,000 students and you figure out really fast there's a lot to do. And I tried to do everything. I really did. Vice president of student government. I was an RA. I was a student ambassador, involved in student government, the football team, the track team. And I tried to do everything. And it's really kind of been a staple of my life. And it drives some people crazy sometimes, but I want to see it all. I don't want to leave stones uncovered or unturned. And, when I go on vacation, I'm not the guy that wants to lay at the beach and take a nap and read a book. I can do that at home. I want to see everything there is to see because I just don't know if God's going to give me a chance to do it again. And I've always kind of been that way. So, one of the things I always look back is I say I kind of rushed through life. I did. Yeah. And I think as I got older, I've learned to slow down a touch more. Still don't have my foot off the gas, but I'm learning to, look around and enjoy the scenery at least as I'm going 100 miles an hour.
Guys like us don't know how to take the foot off the gas.
No.
Right. It's so interesting hearing you give pieces of this story because I see so many, I'm seeing now, as I've seen so many times, why we are so close because of how similar we are.
Yeah.
And how some of those things, I was the same way. I wasn't necessarily in one particular friends group. I was kind of a part of every friends group. I was that mix. I was that person that was involved in a little bit of everything because I had FOMO of not being around other people.
Right.
I had this real fear and I didn't realize it until later in my life. But later in life, I realized that I just want to be around great people. And that's all that matters. And that's turned into the person just like you that chronically overcommits myself to doing certain things because, and it, again, drives my wife crazy and a lot of people around me crazy because I'm the person that wants to do more, that wants to give more, that wants to be a part of things, that doesn't want to miss out on things, that's always willing to say yes.
Yeah.
And you're the same way, but I believe it's for the right reasons.
Well, and you look, probably one of my most humbling stories was a few years ago on Facebook. This parent posted something and it was late on a Friday night and they had tagged me. And so I'm reading the post and Shay, my wife, goes, why are you tearing up? What's going on? And this parent said that they were standing at the top of the Clarkston High School football stadium on a Friday night watching a game. And there were two men talking about Coach Russell and the impact I had made on their kids' lives in two different sports. And the woman said, she leaned down and said, might you be talking about Coach Dan Russell? And they said, actually, we are. And she said, well, ironically, he coached my daughter. And she said, Dan, I just want you to know the impact you've made on so many families' lives over the years. And it didn't stop. People are still talking about it. And you think about those things. And to your point, there were days that I've come into my house. I remember one specifically, walking into my house late one night. My whole family was asleep. I had spent that evening mentoring someone, and after work, after hours, not saying no. Someone said, hey, can we get together? And I was like, well, can you do 8? And they were like, sure. And 8 turned into, coming into the house at the wee hours of the morning. And I just remember saying, God, am I doing this wrong? And God, almost as audibly as we're talking, said, Dan, you continue to take care of my children. I'll continue to take care of yours. And he's been so faithful to that. And so I continue to try to pour out as much as I can, knowing that, we've been given an opportunity to make a difference. And to your point, let's not miss it, because there were people that did miss that opportunity with us, right? There's somebody who didn't say, hey, Kevin Stewart, you got a gift. Let me help you with that gift. Let me help you develop that gift. Let me help you understand how to use what makes you so special to change the world. Instead, they just said, oh my gosh, Kevin's always in everything and he's high energy. And they didn't realize you do it because you love people. And so when you get the chance to pour into a young adult's life, a young business owner, a business owner who's been at it for a long time, and now they're trying to revamp and change themselves and rebrand themselves in a world that's changing every moment. When you get a chance to pour something into that person, man, I just don't know how to look past that. To your point, it's almost that FOMO, and it's that fear of missing out on helping someone, because we can.
Well, it's the fear of missing out on the impact that you believe you're here to create.
Yeah.
Because we both have this extreme desire to leave an impact that lasts well beyond our years. I know it because we talk about it all the time. We both have that innate burning desire in us that cannot be taken out. It cannot be.
No.
And we have to constantly find ways to help other people and leave a positive impact on their life. I mean, that's come down to the theme of what I believe my life is to leave a positive impact on everyone I meet.
Yeah.
So now all decisions point back to that. And if it doesn't point back to that, I don't do it anymore. That's how I roll now. And I'm finally living into that. And over the last couple of years, and you being someone who's walked that journey with me, because you were there when I was at my lowest low, when I was coming to you saying, Dan, I don't even know what's going on in my life right now. Like, I'm a mess. I'm not who I'm supposed to be. This is jacked up. And you lived it with me. You walked it with me and encouraged me through it. And you're one of the ones who helped pull me out of that. You're one of the ones who helped me go, Kevin, you're meant for more than this. You're meant to do something more than this, but you just have to commit to it and do it every single day.
Well, and Kevin, when you say that, I think about our circle, right? And there's a quote I heard a long time ago, and I've said it a couple times in public speeches. If you look around the circle that you have for your life and you're not inspired, you're not in a circle, you're in a cage.
Oh, man.
And
100%.
When I look at friends like you, that, to your point, we've had some nights where we're talking about legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't have those conversations. And I'll say most guys don't have that conversation. We're friends that'll say, I love you at the end of a conversation.
Almost every time we talk.
Yeah. We are friends that will give each other that hug that people go, wow, they're really happy to see each other. And we just saw each other a few days prior. Those moments in life for us, they're times that you've inspired me because I saw you get back up. When you look around your circle and you see that person who says, Dan, I'm struggling, you go, I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm. Because
so often I think we in life think we're the only one. We're the only one that doesn't have it figured out as a parent. We're the only one that doesn't have our marriage figured out. We're the only one that, work isn't going as good as everybody thinks it's going. It's tough when you feel like you're the only one. And unfortunately, we live in a world that, we see social media and we see everybody's best.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And having the people in your life that you can lean into when times are great. Because I can tell you the amount of times that we've gone out and we've celebrated where, whether it's me celebrating you or you celebrating me or us celebrating each other, we get to live each other's wins. And we also are there when we're at a loss.
Yeah.
And we can see it and feel it and experience it and live inside that moment with each other. That's true relationship. That's true friendship that goes beyond just a guy you see or buddy you see every while that you walk up to and say, hey, man, how you been? It's beyond
genuine.
that.
It's real. It's authentic. And when you just said, as those words were coming out of your mouth, I remember you walking around my childhood home that I grew up in. And this isn't a plug for you as a realtor. This is a plug for you as a person. For anybody that's lost a parent, that you go through so many different emotions. You go through so many different things. And when you're walking through your childhood home, watching it, somewhat be dismantled, having to deal with emotions of family and your own internal emotions of, those things that you're just sitting there looking. And I remember seeing you, not just by yourself, but you with your family who had come out to help my family get their house prepared to sell, because my mom, my sister, myself, we were all almost paralyzed in the moment. And, you're walking away from something that my mom, I think, told you so many different times. I lived here for 40-some years, and I sat there and watched you hold my mom's hand as she told you stories about being married to my dad. And, for my mom and dad spent every day together their entire life. Like they didn't miss a single day.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was gone. And when I remember my mom talking about having to sell the house, and I remember it was one of those moments where I was adamant about who we were going to use. There weren't a lot of things I argued about after dad passed, but that was one. And seeing those moments of you holding my mom's hand, seeing me cry, see, me try to process all of it. And again, as my boy, there were some times you just walked by and you didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of gave me a head nod. It was, it's okay. I'm here. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, I think so often in life, people say, what do you say? What do you do? You just be there. You're there. You're intentionally there. You're intentionally present. That was a moment you could have said, hey, Dan, you guys do the best you can with the house. We'll figure it out. We'll send somebody. We'll send somebody to do it. You came, and it was a Saturday morning, and you have 2 children. Like you had children at home that you had things to do that day. I know you did, because after you left, you told me what you were going to do, and thank you to your amazing wife for, picking up that morning. And then I'm sitting here looking at your family there, helping me in my time of need and trouble. And to your point, that's real. That's authentic. That's when somebody doesn't talk about it, they actually do it. And, I'd say when people look around their lives, if they see those people, you hold on to them and you take the time to thank them. You take the time to say, you helped me get through, because we need that sometimes, because as we are pouring out, you don't realize the impact that you make all the time. As you're sowing seeds, you don't always get to see the growth. That's one of the challenges of life. We all want the growth, especially the world we live in now. We're still a Burger King society. We want it our way right away. We want to water it. We want to see the growth. We want to see the impact. And we want the person to come back and tell us it all worked out the next day. But it's those silent moments. It's those moments of, I'm here.
Well, and when you get the opportunity to take care of the family you chose, not just the family you were born with, it's special. It's something that
powerful.
you get the opportunity to do. My family being able to do that was our way of saying thank you for everything you've done for us, because you're the family we chose, not the family that we have. Right?
Yeah, that's so good.
And so life doesn't give you tons of those opportunities, but when you can pick your head up and take them and use them and find a way to make an impact, that's how you know you're doing something right.
Oh.
And it was a joy, and it was great. I got to know your mother through that, which was awesome to get to listen to those stories. It wasn't just about holding her hand and being there for her in the moment, but it was getting to see the insight into how the man that I know was developed, and getting the opportunity to see that and feel that and realize that this woman raised you. And I'm grateful, and I'll do anything for her because she raised you, and you have a huge impact on my life, and you're important to me, and I care about you. So when you get those opportunities in life, how dare we not take them? We have to take them.
Well, in the fact you get to do it and we get to do it for a living.
Yeah.
Right. People talk about when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. That still doesn't mean what we do is easy, but you live it out. Right. And I can think of people that I've sent you and the phone calls we've had prior to me calling you, and I've said, hey, this person's in trouble. I don't know if it's going to result in a deal, but could you help? And there was never hesitation because you were never doing it for the close, the sale, the money, the deal. And I think when you look at business owners who are doing it the right way in life too, they're not out for the close, the sale, the deal. When they realize the impact they have on the people who work for their team, when they realize the impact on that moment for that person, you're touching the most intimate thing for most people's families. You know, their home is the largest purchase most people will ever make in their life. And it's that one sense of security. And, you know, recently I saw somebody who bought a house and they never thought that they'd be able to buy a house. And the text message they sent me was one of the coolest things. They sent me a picture of a garage door opener. And I said, what's that? And they said, I never thought I'd have a house, and I never thought I'd have a garage door opener. And you think of something we use every day. We use it every day. They took a picture of it. They took a picture of it because it was something that was so impactful. That moment, they just looked at that one thing and said, I made it. You help people navigate that every day, and the emotion that goes into that, the husbands and wives that are typically maybe on two different pages of what they're looking for, but there's a common ground. You help people really in their marriages sometimes communicate when they haven't been able to for years, and be able to articulate what they really want. And I think so often people struggle to say what they want and what they need. And you just have a gift of helping people bring that wall down and just say, here's what I'm really looking for. And like you said, I saw it with my mom. I saw it with my mom that she talked through so many things, and there were memories and there were emotions tied to things. And you didn't make her feel like she was wrong for feeling that way. You actually just listened. And, you know, the one thing I'm trying to learn even more as I get older and mature in my career and life is how to be a better listener. And what are we listening for? Are we listening to insert our next thought? Are we listening to understand? Are we listening to empathize? Are we listening to connect? And when you start to really recognize that everybody wants to be heard, everybody has a voice. And, you know, just this morning, in my time of study, and I thought about the face that a child has when they're trying to talk to their parent, and their parent's in their phone, or their parent's in a conversation, and you see that kid and they're waiting and they're waiting, and then they see mom or dad doesn't notice and they just are deflated. That's most people in life, because unfortunately, you know, the number of times somebody walks by you and says, hey, Kev, how you doing? Good, good, good. Wait, I didn't say anything. You already saying good, good, good. And you really didn't say it to hear, how are you doing? You said it as a greeting.
It's just a general response.
Yeah. And you look at that and you start to notice, if someone's speaking, they have something to say. And if you actually take the time to listen to them, it's amazing what you'll discover with people. You'll notice their fears, you'll notice their hope, their motivation. And then I think that's where we recognize where God wants to use us in that moment.
So it's so interesting that you're talking about the idea of listening, because the one that's been on my heart a lot, and I've been challenged by recently, that I've really been focusing on, and I'm challenging a lot of people around me, is to be curious. Is I want to be someone who's curious. I want to be curious about what makes Dan Russell tick, about what's going on in your life. So it's like listening to another level, because there's a difference in just listening and actually being curious as to why. And I believe that when we're in the positions that we're in and we get to live the lives that we live, if we live a life of curiosity, how much more of an impact can we make? Because we get to now ask the questions that dig a layer deeper and a layer deeper and a layer deeper. And you can't be curious if you're not listening, because you won't know what to ask next. But if you could live a life of curiosity, how much better of a person would you be if you're paying attention to the things around you and the great things that are being tossed out to you, and you're curious as to what that is and what you should learn from it? Your ability to create an impact and to grow just goes right through the air.
Well, they say sometimes the wisest person in the room is the quietest,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're able to absorb, to your point. If you're curious and you're listening, you get to pick up what this person says and then that person says and what that person says, and you leave wiser. You leave maybe a little more developed. You leave understanding other people. And I think, one of the beauties of our relationship, we cross cultures, we have been in, I just think of some of the environments we've been in with all types of people. We see past the things that most people get caught up in, and we can learn from so many people around us. But that curiosity, I laugh sometimes because the number of times you and I have been together and someone has brought up a show or a movie or something, and I have to thank you because you're one of the people that never makes me feel bad when somebody goes, "Have you watched that show?" And I go, "No." And they go, "What? Where have you been?" And I look at them sometimes and I'm like, I've just been living, but I've never watched the show. And for years, I'll admit, I struggled because I almost just would say, "Oh yeah, I know, I heard about it." And I lost the moment of curiosity that you just brought up. And then I finally, again, through several times with you and just growing and saying, it's okay that I haven't seen it. Can you tell me about it? Why do you think I should see it? What about that show? What about that movie impacted you? No, I didn't see it. It's amazing. And you've been around.
I've seen it. I'm laughing at it because the amount of times that's happened, because it's true. You really don't ever watch any TV or edit. Like all the modern shows that everyone's up on, you're like, I don't even know what that is. I have no clue.
I always think about it this way. If you take even, and I used to watch sports so much, and especially as my kids were playing, I watched a ton, and I don't as much. I find it as a moment to connect with people now. So if we're going to a game and it's a moment I get to enjoy with you, with a dear friend in that moment and watching that game, I'm all about it. But there's this part of me that I look and I say, if you watch that game, there's 10 guys on the court, they're living their dream. That coach is living his dream. The people on the bench are living their dream. The announcer is living his dream. The photographer is living his dream. The people in the stands maybe are living their dream in their moment. The trainer's living his dream. I struggle sometimes to spend 3 hours watching someone else live their dream when I could be living mine or help somebody else to achieve theirs. And it's this thing in me, and it's weird because I just can't sit.
Man, I've never thought about it that way. Kind of makes me rethink sports a little bit.
But again, if you notice, it's the moment though. So if you talk about, when I was able to go to the Lions playoff game with my kids, and people are like, well, why did it mean so much? Like, man, I remember watching games with my dad for years and never seeing that moment. And then when there finally was that moment, to stand next to my kids and watch my kids' eyes bright, smiling, screaming, that moment is what mattered. That's what made that so special. I can think of
all of my favorite moments that I've had in sports, and the things like I can remember vividly where I was, who I was with, what happened. I mean, I can remember exactly where I was when the Pistons won in 2004. I can remember exactly where I was when the Tigers went on all their playoff runs, exactly where I was when Michigan won the national championship because I was in the arena, and who I was with. And the looks on the faces and the jumping up and down, because it still comes back to the who.
Yes.
It comes back to the who you're with. And I can tell you, because you spent a lot of time at Pistons games as well, right? We both did, and we had very good seats. We sat very, very close.
Oh, yeah.
We liked to have our feet on the hardwood. It was a pretty cool situation. And I can tell you, I can count maybe a handful of moments that I was at Pistons games in the hundreds that I went to, that I can remember what was happening on the court.
Right.
but I can remember hundreds of memories of who I was with, who I was sitting with, the conversations that we had, the jokes that were being told, the laughter that was happening.
Yes.
Because the people that were connected through the sport is what made it cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we both love sports. It's the connection. We like the competition. We like rooting for our teams. You know, I wore green today out of respect.
And listen, blue for you, bro. I mean, this is
out of sheer respect.
Yellow or maize, though. Sorry.
Well, there's a little yellow in this, just in case.
It's good. We just don't stand too close. You know, Mr. Braylon Edwards may get excited seeing a little blue and gold on me. So.
I know, right? Have you ever actually worn Michigan colors? Could you even do it? This is a total tangent and I love it. Like, could you even bring yourself to do it?
So when we moved to Clarkston, I was introduced to an amazing youth football program that I was grateful for. They truly helped my kids develop. I was able to coach in the program for years. The Clarkston Chiefs was and still is an amazing, amazing group. But when I walked out and I saw that their helmets look just like the Michigan helmets, and as a coach, you had to wear the blue and gold.
Oh no.
So
it's like your worst nightmare coming true.
It was, and to see 5 of my 6 children come through the program and to coach for well over a decade, you learn that it's about your kids.
Were you just praying that none of your teammates ever saw or caught it on camera, or like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't see?
At the beginning, very much
they wouldn't understand.
Well, and you know, as a proud parent, the other day, watching my daughter graduate from PA school from said university, in the stands, a parent saw me and they were giving me a little jokes after, saying, I saw you pull up the Michigan State logo and show it to your friends in the middle of the ceremony. And I said, it's because all the other blue and gold stuff was all around me. And they kept chanting that phrase that Spartans just cringe. And, you know, but to see your daughter walk across the stage, I was proud to take the picture because, you know, especially now, we joked about Braylon being a dear friend of both of ours. You know, #1 wide receiver all time, Big Ten, U of M history. You got to respect the school. You know, you got to, you know, when you get past the rivalry, which is real, it's very, very real. And you get to the respect, you know, there's respect within the rivalry. And I think the times that you typically see it get ugly is when people cross that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, people ask all the time, how are you and Braylon such great friends? Because the respect goes past the rivalry. And when you see, you know, we're so lucky here in Michigan that we are blessed to have 2 of the most amazing universities in the world right in our backyard, and several others.
Oh yeah.
Right. Where you look and you go, wait, we have that many great universities and colleges within Michigan. But those 2 shining as bright as they do, it's great now, because I think when I came up, you know, when I was coming out of high school, it's when Michigan State was getting beat up on by Central Michigan, and we were struggling a little bit. And Michigan was definitely a powerhouse at that time. And, you know, to see what Tom Izzo and Nick Saban did over the years to turn Michigan State into a national powerhouse that, you know, love us or hate us, you will respect Michigan State. And when we come to your town, you know it's going to be a dogfight. And, you know, I love that part. And I think growing up, you know, again, as the underdog all the time, I think that's part of what took me to Michigan State, because you know, one of my best friends had gotten accepted into Michigan. I got accepted into Michigan. He got accepted into state. I got accepted into state. And it was kind of that, okay. But we were the underdogs, and, you know, you kind of embrace that. And, you know, the big brother, little brother rivalry that goes on, you know, the little brother likes that sometimes. It makes the little brother a little more special. I've seen with my 6 kids what my oldest son charged the other 2 boys to do. they worked harder. They wanted to be better. They wanted to beat Big Brother. And when they did, they wanted to make sure everybody knew. So, I think it's a cool thing that we have here in Michigan. And
people don't realize it. They don't know what it's like to have two powerhouse schools in the same state.
No.
And it's true. I mean, one of my favorite photos, I didn't take it, somebody else did, from remember my 40th birthday party we had up at IO Club. We had probably 100 people up there. It was an absolute rockin' party. And one of my favorite times during the party is Braylon and Paul Davis are standing. Yes. So yeah, Braylon and Paul Davis, Michigan State basketball legend.
Yes.
And the two of them are standing having a conversation, and somebody took a picture and was texting around. They're like, I wonder what they're talking about. They're like, and I said, I can almost guarantee you I know what they're talking about, which is, how are you? How are you? How are you? Right?
Yeah.
And it was probably perfectly copacetic, and everyone's sitting here going, are they going to push each other? What's going to happen? Are these two guys, what are they going to do? And me and you, who know both of them very well, are like, no, they're boys. You guys are fine.
Well, because you respect, you respect,
because there's the respect of the situation and respect for what it took to get to the level that they both went to, both being at the top end of their school's programs and then both going on to have very successful, good professional careers. And so, there's a respect there that's pretty cool. And it's fun. It's fun because we have that neat respect where we'll chip at each other during games and around the season, but it's in such good fun and camaraderie because we would never get serious, upset about each other. Never.
Right.
And the people who cross that line and do, I'm like, guys, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, you saw it this year at the senior night of Michigan State, right? When there was the little pushing and shoving with Trey. And what people miss there, and I think, especially if you're not from Michigan or Michigan State, you don't know that. I mean, I remember the very first time somebody kissed the court, and that was Mr. Sean Respert when I was a freshman up at Michigan State. And he was the first one that on his senior night, he waves to all the fans and he goes to the center court and he does the push up and he goes down and he kisses the center of the court. And it began then. And then every single season after that for 20 plus years, that's what happens on senior night. So it was, that when the lines of respect are crossed, that's when big brother and little brother really go at it.
That's when they go at it.
And, again,
it's real when you're in it, right? It's real when that rivalry is real. When the lights turn on and those schools play, it's exactly what people think it is. It's real.
Very
but
much so.
It's the years later, it's down the road when the dust settles and you still, again, like you said, you got a lot of anxiety trying to put on not Michigan, just the same colors.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I know for a fact, Braylon would say I don't even think he owns anything green.
I don't.
Have you ever seen him wear green?
I have not. But, again,
I'm going to get him on the show. He already agreed to do it. So now he has to.
He has bought something for me, Michigan State, and I have bought things for him, Michigan. So that's when we know that the therapy has worked and we're finally through it.
But it goes back to what we've been talking about is down the road you start realizing the impact of the people.
Yeah.
And you guys are, proof between the two schools that it comes down to the people. And that's the beauty of it. And I think as we get older and we mature and we grow up, to where that may have been different when you were a player, you're probably thinking, I'll never be friends with any of these dudes.
Yeah.
Forget them. Right. But now you're looking at it going, no, we'll be fine. It'll be fine. They're still people.
The same
and they're
story
still
we
really
talked
good
about
people.
With my dad passing, Braylon Edwards was the first person at my house the day after my dad passed.
Yep.
That had nothing to do with schools. It had nothing to do with football. That had to do with what we talked about with you earlier, showing up when somebody needed you. And that's when that respect is real.
Yeah.
And, again, it keeps going back to us really making an impact. We make impacts for our school. We make impacts on our careers. We make impacts on our job. But what's the impact you're making on people?
And that's what both of us strive to do. And again, I truly believe it's why we were brought together.
Yeah.
I believe it's why the world brought us together, because we were, whether we knew it at the time or not, we were trying to live the same life. God knew we were supposed to be living the same life, and he figured we probably could do it better if we were together.
Yeah.
And he knew that if we found a way and brought us together, our impact could be even greater. And the opportunity for what we could do could be greater. You know, you want to go quick, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
That's the third time I've heard that in the last 24 hours. and Kevin, when I tell you, it's so true. And our world needs that now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
like,
100%.
I think so many people are feeling alone, isolated, me against the world. Now, there's a lot of people who are cheering us on. Something one of my dear friends said to me one time is, he said, Dan, there aren't just people cheering you on. There are people that are depending on you to win.
Mm-hmm.
And together, when we come together, we can go further. We can accomplish more, because you get exhausted, right? You try to raise your kids alone. Good luck. There's a reason everyone says, you talk to any parent and they say it takes a village. Yeah, it takes a village to get your kids to practice. It takes a village to get your kid to pass a final exam. Thank God school is over. The last couple days in my house have not been pretty with final exams. But, you know, you look at some of these instructors who go above and beyond, and they actually see your kid. They actually notice how hard they're working, and they're not just another number being pushed through. You notice that kid that gives an encouraging word to your kid when they don't do so well at a meet or a game, or you watch that stuff, and that's the together, right? And that's that impact that, again, if we can find that, that's when, to your point, I wouldn't be who I am without your relationship. I wouldn't be the father I am, the husband I am, the man of God I am, the person in business I am. The number of times that you've also been real with me, and I think that's something else that people don't always spotlight, the hard conversations, right? If you don't have someone in your life that's willing to tell you you're wrong, be careful, right? Be careful of the person who sees you making the same mistake over and over and over and says nothing.
Say something about it. Right. We both said something about it to each other.
Yeah.
We've both held each other accountable.
Yeah.
We have an innate ability to hold each other accountable.
Yes.
Now, we will also go out, and both of us will go, right? Like, our nights out do not end at 10 p.m.
No.
Right? Like, my wife knows if I'm going out with Dan and she sees, I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready to get together with Dan. She's like, cool, I'll see you tomorrow. She knows exactly what.
That's why I see it share saying the same thing.
They know exactly what's going on. But it's you know, you brought up the village. I mean, we're a part of each other's village.
Yeah.
And our villages have now become a part of each other's. And the fact that we get to live this beautiful life together and get to have the opportunity to create an impact together is special. And I believe the next, 2, 5, 10, 20 years of our lives are going to continue to tell that story. And I love that we're going to get to tell that story together.
Well, and Kev, I look at what you're doing with this. So many people say, man, I should do a podcast. I should. There's so many people that die with a bunch of I should have done it.
Mm-hmm. And
they don't do it. They should have done it. They could have done it, but they didn't. When you step out, I think one of the hardest things is, well, what if no one listens? That's the first thing somebody worries about. When instead they should be thinking about the one that will.
Mm-hmm.
The one person who will hear that episode, that will hear that show, that will listen to that song someone wrote, that will read that book that someone wrote, that will go to the speech that someone speaks at, to sit in a church of a handful of people that one person decided I should be a pastor and I should start a church. That one person that needs it. When we instead are concerned about the one, guess what? The rest comes. because there's a world full of ones that need what you have to say, what the person listening has to say, what I humbly have to say. Someone needs it. And we can't get so concerned about the ones that aren't going to listen. They're not supposed to, right? The people who are supposed to hear the message are going to hear it. And, we forget sometimes that, when God gives us a living word, it's called a living word for a reason. It's supposed to be spoken, because otherwise it dies with us. If he says something, if he encourages you, when we get that, wow, what a thought, say it, write it down,
out,
post it. The first time I said something in a speech and someone posted it and put my name behind it, and I was like, oh, that's a quote. And it's a quote God gave me.
Yeah.
Like, nobody else ever said that before. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. But again, it's when you recognize the accountability and responsibility that comes with the message, right? Because you have to be committed to it. You've got to invest in it. You actually have to take time to develop it. You actually have to be vulnerable and authentic, because, when you and I talked right after you started the show, and, you talked about people who've walked up to you and said, hey, you're Kevin Stewart. Thank you. Wow. It's the impact on the person you don't see.
Yes.
The person you don't know, the person who is a small part of your village in a way that you'll never understand. It's when you have that motivation to say, it's going to make a difference for somebody. I don't know who, I don't know what that difference is going to be. It goes back to that seed. You don't know if you're planting the seed. You don't know if you're watering the seed, but we can't sit there and wait for it to grow. It's not what we're always called to do. We have to just do our part. But when you do take that jump, that cliff moment in life, that is what encourages other people, because people will look and say, well, if Kevin can, if Dan can, maybe I can. That's what it's about.
And you're playing exactly into what I've said in every episode, right? In every episode, and I'll say it here in a minute as we're wrapping up, but being the authentic you and knowing that you have something in you that the world needs.
Yeah.
And there's such a big part of that I believe that if people understood that the gifts and the talents that are inside of them are needed by the world.
Yeah.
They're needed, and the world needs you. And, so it's so special. It's such a great idea and an ideal that when I started the show, I wanted that to be the theme. I wanted that to be the message, is to be your authentic self and be the person that the world needs, because they need you. And, I want to say thank you, because you're one of the people that has taught me that. To not be abashed for who you are, but to live out loud and to live the person that you're meant to be, because I see you do it every day. I see you do it in your business. I mean, we could sit here and talk for 3, 4, 5 more hours. Obviously, it goes without saying we're going to have to do this again. And we'll go down a different road, on the next episode. But you embody what I believe this show is about. And I believe that you embody and are a huge example that I look up to as someone that lives life the right way. So thank you for that. Thank you for being on today. And guys, as always, as you've heard me say, and you heard me say just now, go out there in the world and be yourself. Give the world what you have, because the world needs you. Have an awesome day, guys. Bye.